Video game consoles have an impressive and compelling history. I bet you didn't know that there are more than 70 different gaming consoles to date. I won't go through them all because that would take a lot more than 5 minutes, so this will be concise. We'll start with the first ever video game console back in 1967, the brown box. The brown box was invented by Ralph Baer, a man regarded as the father of video games. There were only 6 simple games made, according to Time Magazine Online, and there were only 7 brown boxes ever made. As reported by Doug Amos in a video on Time.com, Ralph Baer sold the brown box to Magnavox, and it was rebranded as the Magnavox Odyssey in 1972. It was the first official commercial release of a home video game system, as stated by Michael Poe. It used cartridges and featured dots and lines on a screen. Then in 1973, Poe says that Atari's Pong arcade machine was so popular that they decided to make a home game console for it in 1975. It was called Atari Pong Telegames. The Coleco Telstar was released in 1975 and was lauded for its capability to play games in color and for having different difficulty levels, as stated in Time Magazine. Next is the second generation of game consoles. 1976 through 77 saw the release of many consoles, including a series of Odysseys, but most famously the Atari 2600. In 1978, Magnavox Odyssey came out with their final console, the Magnavox Odyssey 2, because Philips, a competing TV brand, bought out Magnavox and began churning out Philips Odysseys. Then Mattel, a company now known for Barbie dolls, came out in 1980 with a video game console called the Intellivision. Doug Amos says that Mattel was the first real challenge to Atari's superiority of Atari's graphics, and it also featured the first synthesized voices on video game consoles. 1982 saw the final release of the second generation video game consoles when Atari 5200 came out. Doug Amos says that the Atari 5200 was as common as a TV or fridge was at the time. Next comes the third generation consoles and the beginning of the 8-bit era. It began in 1983 with Nintendo Entertainment System. It was released in Japan in 1983, but it was not released in America until 1985. It introduced the basis of what many modern consoles and controllers look like today. As reported by Doug Amos, the 80s saw a period of remarkable advanced gaming technology unknown before that time, with the introduction of 8-bit graphics and non-Pong games with storylines. It was during this time that there was a shift from consoles with built-in games to cartridge-based systems. In 1985, the Sega Master System was the first Sega system released in North America, and it was a huge success. This marks the end of the 8-bit era. Now we're at the fourth generation of game consoles. The Sega Genesis in 1989 was the first console with a 16-bit processor. Then 1990 finally saw the release of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. According to Nintendo's website, it sold more than 49 million systems in 1991. Now is the fifth generation of consoles. A major switch was made in the 90s from cartridge-based consoles to consoles that used optical discs with the new CD-ROM technology. Michael Poe states that the Philips CDI in 1992 was the first ever CD-ROM console available, although it didn't have a lot of games and wasn't a big success. Apple even attempted to create its own video game console, the Apple Pippin, 6 years before Microsoft would come out with their console, but failed. In 1995, Sony released the first PlayStation. There was 3D gameplay for the first time. 32-bit processors and CD-ROM technology was much cheaper than cartridge-based games. The Nintendo 64, or N64, was released next in 1996. It featured its own supremely advanced 64-bit technology. The N64 was still a cartridge-based console, according to Time Magazine Online, and was the last mass-marketed cartridge-based video game system. Moving on, we have the sixth generation of gaming consoles. The Sega Dreamcast was released in 1998 and was the last Sega console. It only featured a 32-bit processor. The Sega Dreamcast was the first to offer online gameplay, though. In the year 2000, Sony came out with the PlayStation 2. It was the first 128-bit console. And it was also the first to function as a DVD player, as DVDs were becoming prominent in the 2000s. And according to Doug Amos from Time Magazine Online, PlayStation 2 also offered certain games to be played online. Just a year later, in 2001, was the entry of Xbox by Microsoft, and was Microsoft's first video game console. Also in 2001, Nintendo finally released the GameCube. This noted the company's first non-cartridge-based system and first 128-bit console. Now we have reached the seventh generation of consoles. There are only 3 consoles in this generation: the Xbox 360 in 2005, the Sony PlayStation 3 in 2006, and also the Nintendo Wii in 2006. The Xbox featured wireless controllers and an enhanced online gaming experience through its Xbox Live service, with the ability to also use online services like Netflix for the first time. Instead of referring to consoles and bits, now Xbox had moved to PC-based tri-core processors that gave users lifelike graphics with 1080 high-definition pixels. Marveling over 8-bit graphics seems almost laughable now. The next console to come out was the PlayStation 3 in 2006. It was the first system to boast the ability to play Blu-ray DVDs and Wi-Fi capability. The last console of the 7th generation to come out was the Wii in 2006. This console was significant in the evolution of consoles because the remote can sense 3D movements, according to Nintendo's website. Finally, we have reached the 8th generation of consoles, and it's the one that we're currently in. The first console to come out in the 8th generation is Nintendo's Wii U in 2012. As stated by Nintendo's website, the Wii U console introduces the Wii U gamepad, a controller with a 6.2-inch touchscreen that redefines how people interact with their games, and each other, and entertainment. The Wii U comes with up to 32 gigs of internal memory and features HDMI and USB ports. The next console to be released in the 8th generation is the Ouya, and was released in 2013. Not much is known about this console. Julie Ehrman, CEO of Ouya, says that they created it because they love to play games and they like making games, and any developer, big or small, can now create them on the big screen with 1080 pixels. It also runs on the Android operating system. Also in 2013 is when the PlayStation 4 came out. According to PlayStation's website, it is centered around a powerful custom chip and a state-of-the-art graphics processor. It also features a USB drive, HDMI, Bluetooth 2.1, and voice control capability. The final console to come out in 2013 was Microsoft's Xbox One. According to Xbox website, the Xbox One features cloud-powered performance and intelligence with Xbox Live, voice recognition with the Xbox Kinect sensor. It also features Skype video calling. To conclude, video game consoles have evolved vastly over the 46 years. From the first ever video game console, the brown box in 1967, to the Xbox One, video game consoles have evolved most conspicuously. Video game consoles went from one dot chasing another on a black and white screen to 1080 pixels of high definition color, incredibly realistic graphics, and a wide variety of games and internet features. Consoles have become less about games and more about what else it can do to entertain you. Alex Pham from Billboard Magazine Online says, just look at the offerings from Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Both are bursting with apps that have nothing to do with games. With our constantly advancing technological world, who knows what amazing advances we'll see in